Hi, tarbucktransom here with Thrifty woodworking. And remember in the previous video about principles, like guiding design principles, that I said you would need to modify your tools when you buy them? Well, I got a Mattock. That's it's like an axe, but this way, and for digging. And I want to turn it into an adze. The reason is, if you're shortening a piece of stock, like bringing the width in, okay, and you want to do it in a hurry, one way to do it would be to use an axe and to shorten it going this way. But the sidelong glancing blows like that on the work table, where the table would be off to my side there, not as comfortable for me. So I'm going to prioritize my body over the cost of a new tool. I got myself one of these at Harbor Freight for $10, and I'm going to be spending the next video turning it into an adze, because this downward motion is much more natural. I'm going to be sharpening that, and hopefully that will take an edge. Yeah, it's a digging tool, not a cutting tool, so it's probably in a mild steel, but I'm not going to use it super often, so it shouldn't be that big of a pain. Alrighty, let's get to it. I'm outside in my shop, which, if it looks run down, because it is, it used to be a chicken house, and it hasn't been repaired or in any way kept up since like the 80s. And it only became mine in like the last 3 years, something like that. Anyway, I care more about making stuff than I do about like getting all of that set, because I only need to work in this space. It smells like shrimp outside. Weird. I'm not near a lake. So, I've got my safety glasses, I've got my mouse ear style protective earmuffs. About the earmuffs, I'm not expecting to use any power tools or anything like that, but the file going over the metal makes a really loud, high-pitched screeching sound sometimes, and I hate that sound, so I'm protecting my ears from the high volume, high pitched sound. I got the Mattock that I'm modifying, and then a couple of other things. I have my carpenter's axe, which is out here because I need to match the cutting edge of the future adze to the cutting edge of the axe, because I know this performs well enough. I want to make sure that the adze does as well. And to that end, I also have a bevel gauge. And a honing steel that I got from a flea market for 50 cents, which I forgot in the house. I also have the vise and file that I inherited. One of many files that I inherited, actually, along with this shop. Alright, so let's get on with it. Let's get the measurement of the bevel of my carpenter's axe off of here. Alright, so I'm expecting it to be about there. I'm not going to tighten it all the way. It still moves, but it now holds itself. I'm going to get that in there. Let's see. Eyeballing it. There, so you can see too. Oh, focus. Focus. It's a little tighter than that. There we go. Okay, so that wound up being our angle. I'm going to tighten that down. Now we have our adze. And that's pretty accurate to the angle that it already has. Lucky me. That means that when I'm going over it with my file, all I have to do is match the angle of the grind that's already on it. That's mighty convenient. I was in editing and I realized I never told you what the angle was that I used, or how to find it if you don't have a bevel gauge. So we're going to cover that right now. Now, I still have the angle here that I picked up from off of my axe again after I put it away. This is a piece of graph paper that I had because that was what was in front of me while I was editing. Okay, so I've got this on the table, and it's square to the edge of the table. I'm going to set that on there. I'm going to find that angle there. And I want to put that on the corner, actually. So match it to the corner. And the line in. Yeah, that looks parallel. Okay, now I have my speed square. This is the coolest use for a speed square that I can think of. I get it going on this corner of or on this side of the table now. Get the corner to the corner of the paper. We're going to be using it as a protractor. So we would swing it out on the pivot point until you see the line. Now, I can see it from my angle, but you can't, but that's exactly the angle, and that's why we have another. That's a happy accident with finding the other angle down there. And we can see here, my page has wandered a bit, but that is 20, 25, 24 degrees. Okay. And from there, that line right there, you can fold on. I'm going to pinch it right here and right there. There. Now, if you don't happen to have a bevel gauge or anything like that, you could cut that out right there and use this as an angle guide and lay it over the cutting edge from the side, because this is a squared off tool, until lay it on the side, on your side and on the side away from you, to make sure that it matches on both sides there. And with the method that I showed you before, you can show that it's flat that way. Now, it would be better if you had something like a bevel gauge, which would be not terribly difficult to make. But if you're in a hurry and you don't want to go out again, that is how you would find that angle. And once again, that angle is 24 degrees. Now, the adze itself is tomahawk style. That means that it's thicker on the top than it is on the bottom, as opposed to like an axe, where it's thicker on the bottom for the head to rest on, and then it's wedged, and then another spreader is put in there to really fix it on there. Okay. I like tomahawk style for something like this, because as it goes in, it's going to push itself up into the head, giving it a firm grip. Okay. And it also makes it really easy to disassemble. There we go. What you just saw was a lie. That was my second take. I had to go over there and give it one good whack on my shop floor, because this table needs resurfacing. I used a board that's too thin. Anyway, we've got a free head now. Okay, so I've got my head free, and normally for my posture I'd be working at it at this pitch, but so that you can see it a little better, I'm going to work at it about right there. Now, if I go straight in, I'm going to bang up against the head itself, so I'm going to go across after I put my knife away so it doesn't get in the way. It's going to be pretty easy to match the bevel on this, because it has a nice coating on it. That'll tell me if I'm going wrong. I thought about maybe doing this with my... I was right the first time. I thought about maybe doing this with my angle grinder, but I don't want to heat up the piece too much, because whatever treatment that's on there, if it was treated at all, would soften rapidly. If I were to do that. The reason I'm changing my position so much try and find a comfortable place to work. It's nicer on my back. Take care of your body, folks. Actually, a lot of the design decisions that I've made, as far as how I structure the shop, and other things that I've made, furniture and like, is designed for more things to be closer to eye level and closer to an unbent posture. With the sound that this is not making, I'm expecting that this is a mild steel. I'm not too worried about that, because our ancestors did quite a lot with copper tools, and copper is quite soft. Okay, let's see where we're at. We got a ways to go, folks. I think I'm going to cut until I have a trick to show you. Wouldn't you know it? I immediately thought of a trick as soon as I cut. So when I'm doing something with metal like this, a lot of the time when I'm shaping something and trying to match the edge, I'll take a Sharpie and make some marking lines like that. I don't have to fill in the whole thing. I just need marks so that I can see how I'm cutting, if I'm staying relatively flat. Now, you see how that mostly went in the middle, but not towards the edges. That means that I'm bowed a little bit. I'm going to spend some time at the end to clean that up when I have an actual edge. That's a nice trick to keep in mind to keep yourself shooting straight. You can see as those wear out, I can add another line here and there. To see if that's because I went off in multiple strokes, or if it's because it's actually getting flatter. It looks like I just went off in multiple strokes. Alright. Every once in a while, you're going to want to clear out your file. Normally, I have a steel brush wire for that, but I'm just using like a regular plastic hard brush. Okay, so what you missed between cuts, I shifted it back up here to a comfortable working posture, and I also started a second bevel that was down here, closer to the edge, to just get an edge on it. And now I'm going to be taking out the middle part here so that it actually is flat all the way down. What you don't want is you don't want it to be bowed like that. You don't want it to be convex on the one side, because the depth of the bite into the wood is controlled by how much meat it encounters how quickly. So if you've got like a teardrop shape, it's going to get bigger faster than if it was flat. Because if it's flat, it's there. You know, the holy grail for that is the hollow grind, where it scoops in away from the edge. But those are fragile, and I think the flat grind is a nice compromise between the two. So I have some old marks there. I'm going to be adding some new ones. There, it doesn't have to be a ton. I got there are specialized Sharpies for hardware that are designed to write on all kinds of stuff that you're not supposed to write on. More so than a regular Sharpie would. You know how Sharpie sometimes beads up on some materials, so that's something that I just sort of have laying around. I don't want to be that guy who keeps saying, I had this laying around, but a lot of these things are laying around because they were being used in previous projects of mine. Now, if I just chunk out the middle there, it's going to be at a different angle. So, like, maybe there's a diagram on screen. If I match this point to this point, it's going to change the angle. What I want to do is keep the bevel on this side and then jog it down to that side, which is a lot of doing. That's going to take a while, so I'm going to cut again. So, after maybe 10 more minutes of filing, I have a nice bright and shiny edge. I have multiple times, I have taken the angle, which I saved from earlier, and if I didn't save it, then my hatchet is right over there. I can get it back pretty easily. And I've checked that angle against what I'm doing to see if I need to draw it back farther. And a lot of the time, I did need to draw it back farther. That was the disadvantage with doing it the way that I did in the first place. An advantage that I had from doing it that way is that the temperature of the thing is a lot easier to manage, because these files do introduce quite a bit of friction, even on metal like this. There's a couple of ways you can get around that. You can rub chalk on it. You can get like a little pack of school chalk or something like that. You could use pencil lead, but that gets expensive quickly. Most of the mass of a pencil is wood. It's only got that tiny little bit of pencil lead in there, and to get at the lead itself, you have to go at it for quite a bit. Now, I've got a fairly square looking to my eye when I'm standing up cutting edge right there, but let's have a look at it and see how square it is looking edge on, or face on, like that. You can see the way that it catches the light. It's not perfectly flat, but that's okay for me right now. Let's see. I'm going to call that good enough. Okay, now, the edge of it looks a little ragged, so that means that I'm going to have to go to the top side of it and flatten out a little bit right there, because you see all that texturing. That is not helping me get a nice clean cutting edge, so I'm going to sharpen that up now. I'm going to try and keep the bevel fairly shallow on this, because all I really need to do is put this tiny little bit on there just to make it flat. And I don't want to wear away too much of the coating. All of the actual edging I can do later on. So I'm going by eye and I'm keeping a close watch on it. Yeah. Okay. Now, next thing, I'm going to bust out my Speedy Sharp. And I'm going to get that flat. Like, actually flat. Now, I'm sharpening this way and pushing forward right now, because the steeper the angle right there, the more material I'm going to take off. When I go to polishing, I'm going to lift up on it because it's square on the bottom. So if I'm pushing forward this way, it's taking off more material than if I lift slightly and get a shallow angle and push forward there. Your two factors that you can control for this thing are the angle of the rake and the amount of pressure. I'm hoping the brim of my hat isn't obscuring the view. Using the same rake angle and pulling strokes. Now I'm lightening up and changing my cutting angle. To get it nice and flat on the top. Now there's a lot of burrs on here. I'm not worried about that right now because I have a deburring tool over there, a honing steel, that I got from a flea market for 50 cents. Actually, no, it wasn't in my rundown earlier. I'm going to have to go get that. I'll be right back. Okay, I got my honing steel, and the the way that I typically use my honing steel, I'm going to put gloves on, is freehand. So I'm actually going to take it out of the vise. And this honing steel is covered in a bunch of channels that run this way that are very small. And those will take all of the burrs, etc. off. This is much lighter than this thing is. As I'm going down so that it doesn't build up too much heat on any one spot of this thing. I'm trying to find a good way to hold it. Okay. Now run some into it. I did a couple of strokes going away from the edge and a couple of strokes going into the edge. And the metal of this is tougher than the metal of this, so I'm going to have a little bit to clean up when I'm done. Alright, so back in the vise, and I'm going to flip that over and make sure that the edge on the back is nice and clean. Gloves off for fine details. Most of the time I wear the hat to keep my hair out and in one spot, and it keeps this nice sweatband that's on the inside against my forehead for when that's a problem, which is often. I have a little piece of cord that has a handful of knots in it that I can get around my neck and then get up here and then pull it tight and then just push it back, and it keeps my hair out of my way for those times when I don't want a hat. Which is pretty rarely. I like hats. Actually, that's a nice effect. I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. Okay. Now, hopefully, you'll be able to see how the degree of polish changes considerably as I'm doing this. Now, your temptation is going to be to go way too fast. I'm actually going to sight it. Make sure I'm at the right angle. And when I'm sighting it this way, I'm making sure... Well, I'll do a video on it. I'm verifying the angle every time I give it a stroke. I've got the angle thereabouts now. That was a cow. I don't know if you could hear the cow. Yeah, there be cows in them hills. Now this is the Speedy Sharp here is a tool that I keep in my pocket, like all the time. I'm never without it. Unless I absolutely have to be. It's about $10 online. There are a lot of imitation tools that use a tool steel. What the cutting edge of this is made out of is tungsten carbide, which is incredibly hard stuff. You see that on high-performance drill bits and saws. Alright, I'm checking the bevel on that. And give the bevel of that one more of those. I'm using a featherweight when I do that. Don't press hard, especially in this material. There. Let's see. I'm not looking at it so that my eyes don't distract me. I'm looking up. Yeah, that feels about good. There we go. Keen cutting edge. I gotta tell you, I did think about removing this pick because that might hypothetically be a danger. I think I might cut it to there. If I do, I'll let you know. But I feel like that would turn it into a single-use tool. And you know I don't like single-use tools. See my video on principles of design for thrifty woodworking. And yet, if I'm not digging, I don't really have a use for a pick. I do need to leave some of the mass on the back because that stabilizes it when you're swinging it, but, yeah. So, to get the head back on here, what we're going to do is we're going to get that most of the way back on, okay? Now I have a nice hard surface that this will definitely work. And I'm going to pop down this way because the head of it being very heavy is going to want to keep going after the bar is well and done being moving. So let's give it a whack. Let's give that a little test. I'm doing that lightly. Give it one more good whack, and that feels pretty solidly on there. Yeah, that's nice and quick. Much faster than hanging the head on an axe. Alright, so I'm going to get these back on because I'm going to make some noise. I got a piece of scrap from over here. Let's see, can you see that? Yeah. Alrighty, so very first thing, we're going to try the axe and see how that performs. Decent height. If I get it over here underneath the hard spot, it's a lot nicer. I'm not worried about banging up my tabletop because I'm going to be replacing that in a future video. Okay, now, moment of truth. The reason that I bought this thing, went to all the trouble of filing away at it for about 15 minutes, or maybe more. I'm not a good estimator of time. Let's see. Get the corner of that in the hole. Alright. That feels quite nice. I'm gonna call that a success. We did it, guys. Now, for a cover. Kydex, maybe? I don't know. In the meantime, I'm just going to be careful with it. But I'll probably have a cover for it by the end of the day. Alrighty. That is turning a Mattock into an Adze. Now, I might have a future video where I take a dowel that's about this size and turn it into a nicer handle. Because I'd like to try both styles of handle, the tomahawk style and the axe style, the wedge. But that's it for today. Airbrush. Clean up, clean up, clean up.